Episode 6 starts with the group looking at the lost woods. Kanade says it's kinda dreary, wouldn't you say? Tanya agrees. They're dark even in midday. What would they say to burning the entire place down? Rein tells her you know you can't do that. These woods are a fully inhabited ecosystem. She tells him she didn't seriously mean it, and asks, so it's deep within these woods, isn't it? Rein tells her yeah, the shield of truth, which only the hero can wield. After the intro, Rein is looking over a map. They say the Lost Woods are in a state of constant rapid growth. He bets the map Audios' party made is totally worthless now. Tanya asks if they definitely have to find the item within. Rein tells her yeah, that's their current job after all. It cuts back to Audios and the group saying they're sorry. Tanya says you call that an apology? They don't look very sorry to her. She thinks they better try to sound a little more sincere. As they continue saying sorry, Kanade asks if they should forgive them. Rein tells her sure. He's gotten it out of his system, and tells Audios that it's about time they put this behind them. Audios says very well. He accepts his request. Now let's get to the issue. Apparently the Shield of Truth is in the possession of monsters that dwell in the deepest depths of the woods. It's indispensable for defeating the Demon King. They must acquire it as swiftly as possible. For him, the hero. The fate of the woods is at stake. He doesn't see how they could possibly refuse. Tanya asks if he's attempting to order them around. Kanade says she bets he's not really sorry, but Rein tells him to hold it while patting their heads, and tells them let's take the job. He said take the job, but Kanade asks if they're really going to help that hero. She doesn't like this one bit. Tanya very much agrees. They don't need those fools' help. She could defeat the Demon King all on her own, though she's not saying that because she's worried about him. Kanade asks if he's sure he's okay with this. He pats their head again. They ask why did he just start rubbing their heads. He pulls back and tells them he's sorry. He wasn't thinking. He was just happy to see them get mad on his behalf. But he thinks they need to help Audios. He's the only one who can defeat the Demon King, and apologizes for dragging them along with this unpleasantness. Tanya tells him she's come this far with him. After all, he's too kind for his own good. So it's her duty to look after him. Kanade agrees. She likes seeing him stay true to himself. But first they need to identify a strategy. They can't use the map, and it doesn't make much sense to just stumble their way through. So Rein suggests that they change their approach, and calls for a bird. He'll assimilate with the bird like before, and get a lay of the forest from above. The two of them will look after his body and keep their eyes on their surroundings. As he's flying, he thinks, man, it sure is a big forest. But although it's hidden, he can just make out a path. He should be able to find a route to its deepest point. Rein returns to his body and tells him it went perfectly. Kanade says great, and starts to head out. But they stop her and tell her that she doesn't know the way. She stops and says, oh yeah. As they're walking, Tanya points out that they've been walking for some time now. Then they come across the stone they used to mark the way back, so they're back at square one. Kanade asks if they picked the wrong path. She tells her that's unlikely. He shared the information he gathered from above with other birds, so even if he did get it wrong, there's no way they all did. Tanya believes they followed the right path as well, and thinks that there's something more to these woods and goes to investigate. She uses material search. It summons lights that lead the way to a tree that is emitting illusionary magic. That's the reason they lost their way. It establishes an expansive magical field that permeates the target's brain. Then, by exposing the audio-visual processing center of the brain to its influence, what Kanade is unable to follow. Tanya tells her in other words, a spell has been cast on them that prevents them from doing anything but walking in circles. Though the scale of it suggests it's more of a barrier than a spell. Kanade still doesn't really understand. Tanya says, now then, Kanade, break down this tree, would you? The tree is projecting the barrier. Eliminating it should allow them to make progress. Rein asks if they can just take down the barrier without destroying the tree. She tells him it's quite powerful. She could do it, but it may take a long time. Kanade brings up that if they're too late, the hero will make fun of Rein. She won't let that happen. She goes to punch the tree, but is stopped by a voice telling them to leave this place. A girl comes out of the tree. Rein says a fairy, and thinks one of the ultimate species like Kanade and Tanya. Spellcasting specialist with magic power even greater than dragonoids. But humans haven't seen a fairy in 200 years. As denizens of the mountain and forests, they viewed humans who harvested the forest for resources as their mortal enemies. Soon, conflict sprang up between the two groups, and the fairies retreated to the hinterlands where humans couldn't reach them. Because of that, fairies hold humans in a great deal of contempt. Rein tries to tell her hello, but she doesn't believe, and whenever he tries to talk, he just tells her to leave. If you won't leave this place, she'll remove him from it. So they sprint away, and wonder what's up with her. Just threatening them out of the blue like that? Aren't fairies supposed to be a warm and welcoming species? Rein tells him yeah, it's unusual that she even showed herself like that. It would be one thing if it were just the two of them, but with a human like him there, she'd never usually show herself. There must be more at play. Tanya says, well, her motives aside, they're in quite a hurry. She believes that they should take down the barrier and proceed. She caught them by surprise before, but she can keep her spell casting at bay. While she's doing that, Kanade will destroy the tree. Then they won't actually harm her. Rein tells him, well, he'd really rather talk to her one more time. They tell him he can't. She clearly had no interest in talking. He tells him he'd rather avoid the use of force if possible. Besides, they were kind of defensive back there themselves, weren't they? If they approach without hostility, he thinks they can work it all out. They sigh and say Rein is just too kind for his own good. Rein approaches the fairy again, and tells her they're not her enemies. They just want to talk to her. She tells him to leave. He tells her they aren't here to disrupt the forest. They just have business inside. She tells him if he won't leave this place, but he cuts her off by saying go on and attack him if she wants. If that would build trust between them, he'll accept that. But please don't hurt the two behind him. She says, really? In that case, she'll purge him now. Rein thinks it's okay. He can endure one attack, but he won't give up no matter what. He's a beast tamer. He's been through countless situations where he couldn't communicate with words, and yet, if you engage in good faith, your feelings will get through. He knows that. She uses Illusion Arrow and asks why won't he run away. He tells her all he wants to do is talk. She doesn't understand why he would take on an attack just to gain her trust, and wonders if he's actually human. Like those who stole, defiled, and trampled on their lands? Rein tells her he is, but they're not all like that. There are plenty of good humans out there. He can't promise her that he's not one of them, but he hopes she'll trust him. She attacks again, saying she won't be deceived, but Tanya and Kanade jump in front of him. Kanade tells her that Rein really isn't a bad person. He saved her when she was in trouble. Tanya also vouches for him. The fairy stops her attack and says never before has she met creatures like themselves, and asks his name. Rein introduces himself, and she tells him her name is Sora. She will hear what he has to say. After he tells her about the Shield of Truth, she says, I see. He's here getting it in the hero's stead, right? He says yeah, but the barrier is blocking their path. Sora brings up that she's the one who put the barrier up, so Rein asks if she'll allow them through, but she tells him no. The barrier severs the path to the fairy's village. She must not expose her comrades to danger. However, it's necessary to vanquish the Demon King. She'll give them the shield, and goes to get it. Rein asks if she's sure about this. Sora tells him yeah. Though she may despise humans, her hatred for monsters runs deeper. Rein thinks that seemed a little too easy, and asks if there's anything he can do to thank her. She tells him no need. To pass along the Shield of Truth was an ancient pact made between the fairies and the previous hero. She merely upheld that pact. Tanya tells Rein that she says she doesn't need to be thanked, so she's sure it's fine. So they head out. However, Rein turns around and tells Sora that there's something bothering her, isn't there? He can't say why, it's just a feeling he got. Even if it's a small thing, he's happy to listen. And she did fetch the Shield of Truth for them, so there's a chance he can help her. She tells him that she has a younger twin sister. Her name is Luna. Personality is the opposite of her, yet they remain close. In truth, there's more than one path to the fairies' village. There are many found all over the world. Together they maintain the barrier within the Lost Woods. It was dull work, but with Luna's company, there was much joy to be found. But that day, they were obliged to leave the barrier for a time for certain reasons. And there, they encountered a monster working for the Demon King's army. They swiftly attempted to return from whence they came, but it pursued, and they were forced to fight back. However, they failed to defeat it. And then, Luna was captured. The monster's name was Shadow Knight. Rein says, oh, that explains it. A Shadow Knight is a C-rank monster, so it shouldn't be able to defeat an ultimate species, but it does have one tricky characteristic. It nullifies all magical attacks. Fairies specialize exclusively in magic, so it was a bad matchup for them. Sora tells him the monster ordered her to lower the barrier in exchange for Luna's release, but she refused to place her other comrades in danger, so she went to the village's leader for help, but he ignored her, saying that they must celebrate the fact that the others are safely within the barrier. It was of their own doing, so they must accept the consequences of their actions. She understands their leader's reasoning, and yet, she's unable to simply abandon her sister. Rein tells her that she can rest easy now. He makes her this promise. They will save her sister, they won't expose their people to danger, and they will defeat the Shadow Knight. They'll grant all of it, together. Then the episode ends. Some personal thoughts. When the heroes' party asked for help, I thought that they'd be going together, but I guess not. It makes sense though. Adios doesn't seem like the type of guy to actually contribute to anything. I'll be interested to see how Soda's sister acts. Since she's the opposite personality as her, I wonder what she'll sound like, maybe like a delinquent or something. Who knows? A good episode. I'm looking forward to next week. But that's about it. So yeah.